This is a continuation of the video for exercise 3-4. I am on step number 61, where it says to go to the front exterior view and activate the create ribbon and set the work plane. So we're going to hit set, and it says set the reference plane to center, front/back, and then state OK. And then you can even show that if you want to be able to see it. Or not, it doesn't matter. Now we're going to select extrusion, and we're going to select the rectangle tool, and we're going to draw a rectangle to fit this opening right here. We're going to enable the locks that show up, so you want to click on each one of these locks, and that's just going to lock that rectangle in place so it cannot be moved. Right, now we're going to select the material button over here, and we're going to select panel exterior material. So we're looking for you know what? I think I just grabbed the wrong button. Sorry. This button right here. There we go. Panel exterior. And we're going to say, okay, because we set these before when we set those parameters. And then we're going to click at the far right button on the extrusion end. So over here, this little button again. And we're going to select add parameter down here. And we're going to call this exterior panel thickness. We want to make sure type is selected. And then we say OK. Now we're going to select exterior panel thickness from our list. And we're going to say OK. Then we're going to launch the family types dialog box. So that would be up here where we have family types. And we're going to locate the exterior panel thickness parameter. And then we're going to change some information about that. So we need exterior panel thickness right here. It says to set the thickness with the formula as thickness divided by 2. So let's type that in. And then in here we should have 2 inches. But if it's thickness divided by 2, it should change it to 1. Well, let's do that in reverse. I'm just going to go back and do that again because I did it the wrong way. 2 inches, oops, and then thickness divided by 2. Still don't want to do it. Okay, just put it in there manually as 1. Then we're going to say OK. Now in the properties pane, so back over here, we want to take a look at the extrusion end, which is 1 inches. It's grayed out because the value is controlled by that parameter that we just set. So we want to click on the green check mark. Now we're going to switch to our 3D views here. Hit the plus sign, view 1, double click, and we can see this panel. So we're going to change this to realistic to see the different types of material. There we go. And then we're going to activate, we're going to go back to interior elevation view. I'll say back interior. And we're going to activate the create ribbon. And we're going to set the work plane again. Set it. We want to change it to reference plane interior so that we're working on the right plane. And we're going to say OK. Then we're going to select extrusion. We're going to select the rectangle tool, and we're going to draw a rectangle to fit the opening. So we're going to draw a rectangle here, and then we want to make sure we enable these locks. We're going to select the small button right here on the far right in the material. We're going to click on that. We're going to change it to panel interior. Say OK. That's the parameters button that we're changing. And then we're going to go back to the extrusion end parameter right here, and we're going to select add parameter, and we're going to have a new parameter, interior panel thickness. Make sure type is selected. We say OK. We select interior panel thickness from our parameter list. We say OK. we're going to launch the Family Types dialog box, and we are going to locate the interior panel thickness right here. We're going to change this to 1 inch, and then we want to use the same formula, thickness divided by 2. We're going to put that here, and then we're going to say OK, and then hit the green check mark. And then we're going to switch to the reference level. Okay, so in this reference level we see 2 extrusions, and there's one right next to each other, right? Which is good. Now we are going to, let's see if we have them in the right spot though. It actually looks like this one should be on this green line. So I'm just going to move it up a little. Oh, if it will let me. It doesn't want to let me do it. How about I pull it? And no, it just does not want to do that. Okay. I don't want them to be on top of each other, but it looks like they're next to each other in our image. So hold on, just give me a minute. Okay, so in the image in the book, what I'm seeing is if I click on this, I'm going to use this little move icon. I'm going to pull it up to that blue line, and then I'll just remove the constraints because we locked it. That's why it's saying that. But our textbook, it looks like they are aligned so that they're on these reference planes. The only thing that looks like maybe it's not working here is that they're not aligned this way, and I want to make sure they are. So I'm going to attempt to use my align tool and see if that will help them to line up. There we go. Alright, so now they look like the textbook and we can continue on. So we want to switch to view 1. We have the doors right here. And you can see one side's like beige and one side's wood. We're going to go back to front exterior. And we're going to add some more reference planes. Okay? So we're going to create reference planes, and we want to make sure that when we're dimensioning these, that we dimension from a reference plane and not the extrusion. So it looks like we have a couple that are in here. I'm just going to follow the book. So once you have all your reference lines drawn, you can use the annotate tool and annotate. Just make sure again that you're annotating between reference lines and not the extruded object. So what it looks like here is I've got couple different things going on. I'm going to pull my line up. I'm going to hit the EQ button, and I may not have enough lines actually. It's from the book. I'm having trouble seeing, but we'll get it. Okay, so we're just going to extrude some of these dimensions. That looks right. A foot, the dimension between this and then this piece should be 4 feet, so let's change that. Click on the object you want to move, and then the dimensions turn blue, which means you can edit them. Type 4 feet, 7, and 19/32 of an inch. And enter. Alright, and now we have over here, between these 3 dimensions, we should have EQ spacing. So I'm going to click on the EQ, and that'll move that. Alright, so that's okay. Now just up here I did something maybe not quite so right. So I'm going to delete this dimension. Now it looks like we should have one more reference plane in here. So create that. And make sure that your reference planes align with each other. So see how mine all start and stop at the same points. You want to keep your drawing looking nice and tidy. Alright, so it looks like what we have here is between this middle one, and then this end point, there should be an EQ dimension. And then between this, and this one, we should have another EQ. But I believe it just changed our overall width because it's locked, so we can't have that. So I'm going to click on that and type in here 3 foot, 0, and 9/16 of an inch. Okay, and that, so I want to make sure, I'm just going to double check the dimensions to make sure they match the book, and it appears that they do. And then just taking a look at the step 100 and the notes at the bottom of the screen, he says he created a parameter here for the 1 foot to call it kick plate distance. So we can do that. We can create a parameter and call it kick plate distance now we can say, okay, so that'll be kick plate distance is 1 foot, so then we always know what that parameter is referring to. The other thing that we need to do is create a glazing offset of 4 inches. It looks like all the way around here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first just go to the create. I'm going to create another reference plane, and I want this one to be 4 inches away. Okay, and then I'm going to name this reference plane because it's going to get confusing with all those reference, and I'm going to call it glazing offset. I may also, excuse me, I'm also going to annotate this and put in a 4-inch dimension here, and then we'll create a parameter for that and we'll call it glazing offset. And we'll say okay, so then that way we can just kind of see what's going on in our drawing. So we should have a 4-inch glazing offset all the way around this thing. Alright, so what I recommend is as you go around and make these reference planes that you label them as you're creating them, because otherwise, like I said, there's a lot of things going on in this drawing. So I just drew that 4 inches, but now I'm going to have to draw that dimension in there just so I can be clear of what it is that I'm looking at, and then change the parameter up here to glazing offset. So just go around the whole drawing, make that 4-inch offset all the way around. Okay, so next thing to do is to activate the create ribbon, and we're going to set the work plane. So we're going to set the work plane, and we want to set it to center front back. We're going to say okay. We're going to select void form, void extrusion, because we're about to cut through this thing. So void extrusion. This is the opening for the glass. And we're going to draw a rectangle around the glazing outline. So around those 4-inch offsets we made, we want to draw a rectangle, and then we're going to lock that rectangle into position using these little lock icons. Alright, then we want to set the extrusion end to thickness. So we go to extrusion end, click here, we want to set it to thickness, and say OK, and we want to set the start to 0. And then once that's done, we're going to hit the green check mark, and we're going to take a look at it in a 3D view. So we're going to go to view 1, and we see that it cut through the panel, but not all the way through the panel. Oh, no, it did. Sorry about that. Cut all the way through that panel. So we're going to switch to an interior elevation. We're going to activate the create. We're going to set the work plane again. We're going to go to the mid plane, and we're going to say OK. And then we're going to select the extrusion tool. And we want to draw a rectangle in the upper left area where the void is located. So, rectangle, right here it's saying in this void, we're placing the glass is what we're doing, right? Okay, so place that, hit the lock icons, and then we're going to set the extrusion end here to interior panel thickness. I'm going to say OK. And then we're going to make sure that the start is set to 0. And then we want to set the material to glazing. So we're going to make sure we have that glazing parameter. Where did it go? It was frosted glass, wasn't it? Yep. We're going to hit OK. We're going to hit the green check mark, and then we're going to take a look at view 1. And we should be able to see, there we go. The door has mahogany and it has blue, and then we would save this door panel. And I just called mine exercise 3-4 start, but I think the exercise actually told you to name it something else, so follow those conventions.